Hey everyone, it's Jim Maritato, aka Vink Maniac on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm here today to give you a quick tutorial on how to produce the Stay Puft Marshmallow Pizza that I posted over 4th of July weekend, and that I was very thankful to Jason Reitman for reposting and commenting that he found it both something that made him horrified, but also something that made him hungry, which is a very common comment I've gotten, that people are not sure what this is going to be like if they eat it, but they also are very intrigued. So if you've seen the post and you've been wondering how to make the Stay Puft Marshmallow Pizza, I'm going to tell you how to do it. So this is a video that's not going to be a hard and fast recipe as much as it's a tutorial on how to produce this using things that you've got in your house, using the equipment you have, etc. So if you don't have Stay Puft marshmallows even, you can make this work. You can still go use regular marshmallows and they'll be fine. No one will blame you. You just may not be able to make your awesome Instagram post afterwards or whatever. So, but this is really going to be a derivative of like a s'mores recipe. And what you're going to need for this is some pizza dough. I've actually got my own here that I make on a weekly basis, and this is actually probably a little bit overproofed. If you take a look here on the close-up cam, you'll notice there's a giant bubble. This is one of my favorite things about baking at home, is that it's kind of like constantly having weird, you don't want mold, spores, or fungus. That would be bad. But you have living organisms in your house all the time that you take care of and that you produce, and it's kind of like running your own lab. So you're gonna need some pizza dough, but if you don't have a lab full of pizza dough, it's totally fine. You can go off to the store and buy a canister of it or a bag of it at your local supermarket, whether it's something that's coming from like a major producer of baked stuff like say Pillsbury or somebody, or just like your local pizza dough that comes from the local grocery store. So the second thing you're gonna need is you're gonna need some graham crackers. So these are from Trader Joe's, so no endorsement there, but I mean, these are pretty good products. So, but if you get some regular graham crackers, you'll probably want about half of a sleeve for one pizza that you're gonna make, and you're gonna need to break those up, and we'll talk about that in a couple moments. You are going to need, obviously, your marshmallows. So I'm gonna be using the Stay Puft Mini marshmallows because I've got a bag of these, and I'm actually spilling them as I'm talking to you, which is probably not the intended goal here, but the bonus is that if you do that and you drop them on the counter, you can eat them while you make a video. And then, of course, the last thing you're going to need here is some chocolate. And so I'm using semi-sweet chocolate chips. So these, I think, work really well because they give you a sweetness to this dessert, whereas if you use dark chocolate by itself, you're probably going to run into a problem of having too bitter of a dessert. So really here we're talking about sweetened chocolate, a pizza dough crust, marshmallows, graham crackers. Okay, so we're gonna go through this step by step in terms of how I made this product. And the way that I put this together, so I move my pizza peel out of the way here, is that I'm gonna start out with my pizza dough. And my pizza dough is ready to go. Like I said, it's probably been ready for a couple days, actually in the fridge to be ready to bake, but it's kind of been the last pizza skin that I haven't made. So I'm gonna start out by throwing some flour onto my countertop, so that way I know I don't get everything to stick here. And I always like to start out by flouring the top of my dough, because if I'm flouring the top of the dough, it means that it's not gonna stick when I turn it out. So, and if I got too much, I can just dump some of it out. So now I'm gonna turn that out, and my goal here is going to be to keep the top of this dough on top once I flour it. So I want to put some flour on the bottom to make sure that it's not going to stick. But then my goal is that whatever the top was of the pizza before is going to stay on top here. And like I said, this is a pretty overblown, overdone pile of pizza dough here. So it'll be really easy to work with probably, but also really easy to tear. So my goal here is going to be working out a circle. And ideally, because you're going to put a bunch of marshmallows into this thing that is going to become runny and melty, you need a crust. So I like to work an edge into the crust of my pizza to start so that I know I've got some foundation to work with here. So, okay, so once you've got this laid out to this level, the key thing you want to keep in mind about a dessert pizza is you do not want to go too thin. If you go too thin on a dessert pizza, the problem you're going to run into is that it's going to burn really quickly and nobody's going to want to eat the burnt stuff. So we're going to pick this up and we're going to put our knuckles underneath. We're just going to stretch this out a little bit. We don't want to get too thin. You don't want to stretch from the middle. You just want to stretch from the edges, because that's going to keep things from getting too thin in the middle. And ideally, we're going to end up with a circle here. some air bubbles here. If you have air bubbles, it's best to pop them, because if you don't, what will happen is that you'll get very thin spots in your dough. And when that happens, that is what's going to burn on you very quickly. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're not gonna put anything on this yet. So we don't actually want to put anything on this crust, because if we put something on the crust right now, and we then put it in, it's gonna start to bake and our chocolate will actually burn. So we're actually gonna start out with this kind of going in naked. And just for a minute. The oven that we're gonna be working with right now is preheated to 525 degrees with a pizza steel in it. You probably don't want to go that high if you don't have a pizza steel, because this is gonna happen really fast. You might want to do this more on, say, like 450, and use maybe like a cast iron pan that's been preheated if you don't have a pizza steel. But I'm going to do this on 525 because I'm used to cooking pizza in my house at that temperature, and I'm really kind of aware of how my dough cooks. So I'm going to use some cornmeal on my pizza peel to keep the dough from sticking. So I'm going to take that and then pull up here, simply move that onto my peel. And then you're gonna see if you can come with me while we do this very tricky thing. All right, so we're gonna first get our oven open, and we're gonna two-hand this. Come along for the ride. Here we go. Welcome to my oven, which is not clean enough for you to see the inside of right now, but it's happening. Okay, and we're off to the races. We're gonna just let that sit there for a minute. Close the oven door. You've seen too much of my kitchen, too much of my life. Can't be taken back. Oh well. Okay, so we're literally gonna stay for like a minute is all we're gonna spend here. So set a kitchen timer. And the reason we're doing this is we want to get the bottom of this to be crisped up, ready to sort of start it out. The puff in our pizza is going to start to happen. Then we're going to dump some of our chocolate on top of it. We're going to throw it back in for another minute and a half or so to get the chocolate softened up. Then we're going to add in our marshmallows and our graham cracker squares. So while we're waiting on this, I'm going to take these graham crackers and just beat these buddies, because these need to be smaller. So, you know, we're over here saying like crustin' makes us feel good, whatever that means. I could do it for 17 minutes if I was Ray Parker Jr., but I'm not. So I'm not gonna go too small with these, because if I do, they're just gonna turn into crumbs, and that's not gonna be particularly useful for me in terms of, like, I don't know, usability. So just gonna put a couple more in here. We're not making guac. We're not grinding the pepper. We're just creating some crumbs. Sprinkle on the top. Timer's going off. Let's go get this thing. See how we're doing. All right. Come along back for the ride one more time. Pardon the terrible angle. Whoa. Strange things are afoot at the Circle K. All right, so we get this bad boy out. Not too bad. Not too shabby so far. Now, we're gonna keep this really simple. We don't wanna overload this thing, because if we do, you gotta remember, as everything melts, it's gonna spread. So I'm gonna sort of push some of the air out of this, because ideally, I don't really want it to keep inflating in the middle. It's gonna cause problems for me if it does. And I'm gonna take some of these chocolate chips. And I'm just gonna sprinkle them. So low tech. It's like not even measuring. Just give yourself enough coverage so you know you're gonna get some chocolate pretty much everywhere in your pie. This is not unlike making a pizza. Not exact science. But as you can see, this crust is already hot, so these are gonna start to melt pretty quickly. Okay, we're going back in the oven. Let's go. Look, you can tripod this. Check it out. All right, we're gonna set our timer again. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and set that timer for 2 minutes to melt our chocolate on the pie. And then we're gonna go back and get it. And the next step is gonna be our marshmallows and our graham cracker crumbs, which are really gonna be the tricky part. So, be back in a moment. Okay, so it's been in there for about 2.5 minutes, and if you take a look, you can see that the chocolate has started to melt, but I'm not actually letting this like liquefy. I just want these chips to start to get kind of soft. I don't really want to burn myself on this, but you'll see they're just starting to get soft enough, kind of like if you had a melted chocolate chip cookie, because we're still going to go a little further with this. So if we just melt them now, we're going to incinerate them by the time we're done. So at this point, we got to add 2 things to this. 1, we need our marshmallows, and 2, we need our graham cracker crumbs. And so the big thing I say about the marshmallow part of this is that you don't want to go overboard, because as much as it's fun to bury a pizza in marshmallows, these things are going to inflate on your pizza as you're doing this. So you really don't want to be in a situation where you overload the top of the pizza and then it begins to spill out into your oven and it creates a giant mess. So this is one of those like, kids, don't try this at home without your parents kind of moments, because you really don't want to go too crazy here, and I've probably gone even too far right now. So we're gonna find out. But so now we've got our marshmallows on top of this thing, and as you can see, our chocolate's still melting as we're doing this. So you're gonna be in a situation where you really don't want to go overboard, because a little's gonna go a long way. And I say that as I just covered an entire pizza in mini marshmallows, so that sounds ridiculous, but I want you to sort of remember this, because you don't want a giant mess in the oven. Cleaning up melted marshmallow that's burning at 400, 500 degrees in the oven is a bad idea. Okay, so now covered in graham crackers, it's time to go back in the oven. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And this time around, we're gonna hang out, because we don't want to get too far from the oven. If we do, we're gonna run into a problem if the marshmallow starts to burn. And so don't walk away from the oven once you do this. It's a hands-on, like all eyes on this once you put the stuff in. Okay, so here we go. Follow along here. Give you an angle. Once you start to notice that all your marshmallows are starting to puff up, they're getting kind of brown, and you're getting a golden brown on your crust, it's going to be time to take this thing out. And you don't want to push this, because you know marshmallows burn. We all do. We've all been there. We've all screwed this up at a campfire at one point in our lives. I'm starting to see some pretty dark spots on these marshmallows, so I think it's probably going to be time for us to act, to get this thing out of here and give it a shot and see how it tastes. All right, let's go ahead and cut into this thing and see how it came out. We're gonna use my giant pizza sword, which is not really a sword, but I kind of think, I wish it was. Okay, so let's see how we do here. Nice crunch. So we're gonna have a nice crispy crunchy bottom. As you can see, it's also pretty soft. Nice and gooey. Look at this. This is ridiculous. This is like the dumbest thing ever. So you've got your marshmallows, got your graham crackers in there, there's chocolate under there. I'm gonna give this a moment to cool, because if I try and eat this right now, I'm probably gonna destroy the inside of my mouth, which I don't need to do at the moment. Smells good. This is easy. It's not hard. So it's something that if you have the time and you can actually just, even if you're not good at like throwing pizza, you can roll pizza out to do this without a real problem. So, but give this a couple moments. So let's see how we do here. Might really regret this, but I regret nothing. I regret there's chocolate on my face, but I regret nothing about this. So get out there, find yourself a bag of Stay Puft marshmallows. If you can't find them, it's totally fine. Find marshmallows. Get some chocolate, get some pizza dough, get some graham crackers, because I'm ready to believe that you can cross the proverbial dessert streams. The door swings both ways. You can have s'mores and pizza at the same time. Always keep on busting, everybody. Take care.